First of all, your reaction to the news of the cut in international aid. What will that mean for the organisations that you work with?
It's an absolute dereliction. The news about US aid being cut last week was devastating, but to be followed up with news that the UK was also cutting their aid budget means that the infrastructure and the groups that usually support the work of the charities from Wales has all but disappeared.
Thinking about the groups that you work with, I suppose it must be difficult to make choices between which of those groups are the most important, most vital. Are there any that stick out in your mind that you're particularly concerned about right now?
We've been concerned since 2021 when the first enormous cut came to the aid budget by the previous UK government. Since then, groups have struggled kind of to limp on and continue to do their work. At that point, there was lots of research done that said that women and girls were the ones who suffered the most as a result of aid cuts. So we expect to see that pattern continued, and that's where one of the biggest areas of our concern is. But we also know the aid budget goes to support really important projects that do activity on climate change, sustainable livelihoods. So there's concern that we're no longer contributing to some of the biggest global challenges at the moment.
Sir Keir Starmer, writing in the Daily Mail this morning, says that President Putin's aggression threatens us at home. Our national security must now become a whole society effort. He goes on in a piece he's written for the paper to say it's not an announcement he makes lightly, but the realities of our dangerous new era mean that hard power must now take precedence. The national security of our country must come first. Sir Keir Starmer says we have to look after ourselves now before we look after anybody else. Is that something that you can empathise with?
Not entirely. I understand the need for national security, and the world is a changing place. I have heard that we're not on a war footing or anything like that, so I wonder where the defence budget's going to be spent. But what shouldn't happen is for the aid budget to be the first budget that gets cut to increase defence spending. Aid is also a tool for security. It's a tool for peace. It keeps countries that we work with secure. It builds good relationships with countries that we want to have good relationships with, and it delivers real outcomes and improvements for countries that are scarce for resources. And we know resource scarcity can be a real cause for war and things like that. So the aid budget alongside the defence budget should be protected. It's not the first place we should be looking.
But there will be people listening who will say that in the last 2 weeks, the world order as we know it has changed. We've seen President Trump talking about making alliances with Russia. The future shape and size and strength of NATO is also facing huge question marks. Europe is having, as we've seen from Germany in the last couple of days, to look very carefully at increasing its defence. It can no longer, it seems, rely on America. Are you saying that that's been misjudged by Sir Keir Starmer? Do you disagree with him when he says that the national security is one of the most important issues to him right now?
National security is the most important issue, I think, for most of us when we're living through such turbulent times. But the aid budget is important in terms of securing kind of global security. But alongside that, if we create a vacuum by leaving countries and breaking our commitments to them and diminishing our relationships and our reputation, which has already happened, we do create a vacuum. And we've seen it where China and other big superpowers come in and fill that gap and build those relationships. And sometimes we see that those kind of aid relationships can be more transactional. And in fact, some African and some of the poorer countries suffer as a result because the debt burden's so high. And ultimately, the aid budget, when delivered by European countries and the UK in particular, has always been about relieving global poverty as its number one objective. And we can't forget about global poverty when we're talking about defence.
Claire O'Shea, thank you very much indeed. That's Claire O'Shea, their Head of Partnerships at Hub Cymru Africa.